Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this December 12th version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. And you can find all of our stuff, all of the locations for our content is on EOA.network. You can find links to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, our Roku channel, and then also our web. So be sure and check that out. Here in a little bit, we are going to have LeGrand Police Chief Gary Bell with us. How are you?
Good. Good morning.
Good morning, man.
First Friday.
Yeah.
We're already there, halfway through December.
I know. And it's just the weather is mild.
I'm
so
okay with that.
I know, but it's like it just makes you think like we're in October, not in December.
Yeah, which means that it's going to snow in like March.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some substantial snow into March.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a picture not too long ago, and it was like in the 40s where there was a whole bunch of snow in downtown LeGrand piled. But it wasn't, just a couple of years ago, we had, in January, February, we had just got dumped on.
Dumped on nowadays is not like dumped on back in the day.
Well, the picture looked pretty similar, I tell you. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen snow in 1991 was the last time I remember substantial snow.
Yeah.
And when I say substantial, I'm talking drifts to where cars disappear.
Yeah.
Like you can walk over chain link fences.
Yeah.
That's substantial snow, and we used to get that here.
Yeah.
Like up at EOU, the drifts would be so high you could literally walk over the chain link fence.
Yeah. No, I know it's so funny how the weather can just turn all of a sudden.
Yeah,
so.
It feels like maybe the people that talk about global warming are right. I mean, I think they are right. I mean, there's definitely a downturn in how much snow and how cold it is. There's no doubt about that.
Can't dispute that the climate is changing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We can talk for a long time about why it is and what we can do about it, but it definitely is changing.
There's no doubt for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
So, all right, man. Hey, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit here in LeGrand. Here's Joe with the Lego Creator 3-in-1 pirate ship. This awesome detailed set features a pirate ship with moving sails, cannons, and a cabin with openings for the roof and the sides. 3 minifigures, buildable figures including a shark and a parrot. Hobby Habit, just for the fun of it. LHS Girls Wrestling took first place last night in another tournament, the Oregon Trail Championships. They placed 16 different girls in this tournament. That's a lot of placers. They had 7 overall champions, including at 105, Carly Radke, 115, Riley Lease, 125, Lindy Isaacson, 135, Emmeline Livingston, 145, Paige Allen, 170, Lainey Wolf, and 190, Maddie Armstrong. The photos are courtesy of Dory Armstrong and Serena Radke. The LHS boys took second in the same tournament, the Oregon Trail Championships. They finished with 9 placers, 4 overall champions, including Darren Golzo at 113, Bryler Anderson at 138, Dex Dunlap at 215, and Kenai Huff at 285. And I don't think the boys wrestled all their varsity guys in this. I think they kind of spot wrestled because we have the Milenburg this weekend. And that's a big tournament for LeGrand boys. And then the Safeway Belt Buckle Classic runs at the same time right here in town. And that's the girls' version of the Milenburg, essentially. I don't like that they run them on the same weekend because it's really hard to bounce back and forth. And there's good wrestling at both of those tournaments. So, yeah, this weekend, if you don't have anything going on, go to the Milenburg or up to EOU and the Belt Buckle Classic. The LeGrand girls basketball team went to Nissa last night, and they won easily 85-36. They play tomorrow in the Columbia River Tournament in Umatilla against the team to be determined and at a time to be determined. LHS boys basketball goes to Skyview tonight. That game tips off at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Congratulations to EOU volleyball junior middle blocker Kiana Mack on being named to the NAIA National Tournament All-Tournament team. That's a pretty good honor for her. And I would imagine in the next week or so she'll be announced as an All-American as well. EOU men's and women's basketball host rival College of Idaho this weekend on Saturday in Quinn. The women's game starts at 4. The men tip off at 6. If you don't have anything to do, go check it out. The men's game, C of I is ranked number 2 in the country right now. It should be a good game. It's a rivalry, so it's always a good game. And the EOU men's basketball team looks pretty solid this year. This last weekend against OIT, they blew a 12-point late second half lead. They should have won that game, and then they turned around on Saturday and bounced back and beat Southern. So you might get to see some really good basketball this weekend up at Quinn. And Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit, just for the fun of it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, let's look outside at the weather cam. And you may, for those of you that follow the weather cam, every minute it goes to a triptych, and then it kind of revolves. So there's a minute on the triptych weather cams that are all over the passes of this area, and then it goes to the weather cam itself downtown here. So yeah, and then let's look at the weather graphic, see how things are there. So 38. Yeah, there's only, according to this, only 7 degrees difference between the high and the low today. That's funny. And then
25%, 24% chance of snow or flurries.
And then it's going to be similar. So Friday, Saturday. Yep, I guess this is kind of what we got, right?
It's staying right at or just above freezing for the nighttime lows, which is not horrible. I mean, this time of year, I remember, like, usually it's a little bit colder, like in the 20s and teens. But, I mean, it rides right around 32 for the whole week. That's not bad.
No. Man, people, be careful when it's like this and there's ice on the sidewalks and stuff. I know 2 different people that have fallen. Yeah. And people that are not like me and have a tendency to fall. People who are younger. I mean, it just happens to. Yeah. And
I fell a few years ago. I mean, it hurt. I'm not like where I'm going to break a hip yet, but it still hurt. I mean, it don't feel good. I'm a big dude. Falling don't feel good at all.
No, I fell a couple of years ago. Was inspecting the towers with a drone up on Mount Emily and slipped and broke a couple of ribs. And oh man, I was just, that is the most miserable thing.
Ribs are miserable.
Yeah, because there's not a thing they can do it for. It was like,
You don't want to breathe. You don't want to use the restroom. You don't want to do nothing. Anytime you have to put pressure on your diaphragm, you're just like.
I'm trying to think. So I didn't even go to the hospital for like a week until finally Tanya said, like, maybe you just better go and make sure. And so sure enough, I go and like, yep, you broke them. It's like, okay, that's all I need to know. I mean, they couldn't do anything about it anyhow, you know.
The only good thing about ribs is they heal pretty fast. It's not like a super long time of
but it's still 6 weeks or so is about,
it's miserable. I mean,
oh, man.
Been there, done that. It was very miserable.
Anytime you laugh, getting in and out of bed, I mean, you can't.
Anytime you activate any of these muscles.
Yeah, you can't lay on your side. I mean, it's just totally disruptive.
Trying to find the comfortable spot to lay in.
Yep. It's the most miserable thing.
I spent a lot of time standing. I was more comfortable standing than anything, to be honest with you. Yeah. When I did mine, I was like stand up a lot. I mean, obviously you have to lay down to sleep, but I spent a lot of time.
And one of my friends, he's a little older, but he fell yesterday and broke 7 ribs.
7?
Yeah. So.
My goodness.
Yeah, and so it's like.
Whew. 7. That means he got up into the.
Well, I think he said he fell flat on his back, so it must be, you know.
Oh, back of the ribs.
Yeah, but. Yeah, anyhow.
Oh, man, that's miserable.
Yes, it is. So, all right. Well, hey, we'll be right back with LeGrand Police Chief Gary Bell.
Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Here at EO Live, we're committed to connecting you to these intriguing people with EO Talks. We let our special guests share their ideas and life experiences with deep, open, engaging, and inquisitive conversations. You'll also be informed in depth on some of the most recent and relevant events, issues, and more. EO Talks on EO Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku.
All right, we're back. The Grand Police Chief Gary Bell. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, man.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for showing up. And we were talking earlier how that this works out because you can be here first thing before your day gets
Right.
unpredictable. Let's put it
That's
that
correct.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a tendency to do that. I think what I was telling you was that, I have a to-do list and a full calendar nearly every day.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon that doesn't actually map out what my day actually turns out to be like.
Yeah. Well, and no, thank you for doing this. And it wasn't, I almost didn't text you until this morning because I was like, you are so reliable. And it was the very same thing with Commissioner Anders was here with us on Tuesday. And I didn't text him at all, but I thought, it was like, oh, I better just make sure, yeah.
I do have to say, of course it's on my calendar.
Right.
I'm not going to miss it. But I do have to say, for quite a while now, the night before, you send me a text.
Right, and I know.
And it's like, hey, are we still on for the morning? And it dawned on me last night when I went to bed, which,
Right.
a little embarrassingly so. It was pretty early, my bedtime this time of year. But it's like, gosh, Brent didn't reach out to me. So hopefully I didn't put that down wrong. But I was going to be here one way or the other.
Good. Yeah. Well, and so thank you for. I'll follow up. I'll continue to follow up because that's a good cue. Because it's we have very same conversation with Paul.
Yeah.
He said, "Well, Brent didn't call, or Brent didn't send a text." He's like, "But I looked up on EO Live, and sure enough, there's the announcements that I'm going to be on the show tomorrow." So
yeah, if I'm never here, if I don't show up, you're going to know that something serious has occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well, hey. So how's things going in the La Grande police world?
Yeah, very good. You asked me that question. And
I know, it's so general.
Well, it's fine. But
Yeah.
here's the truth is that, when people need the police or need to call 911, it's usually not one of their better days.
Right.
And so, things are going great. We have a great team of people. We're still recruiting to fill some vacancies, but, that every day in and day out, our folks are working hard and doing a great job. But yeah, so things are going great, but I don't want to suggest that means that it's all good news.
Right. Yeah, and and so it's not ever. Enforcement. And Cody was here, last week, and we were talking about the county law enforcement and so on and so forth, and it's never great. Right. It's just it is like safety in a community is one of the tenets that has to be there.
Right.
And if it's not there, then everybody knows.
Yeah. I just we're accomplishing our mission.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that everyone has a good idea, at least in their own mind, what that is. And day in and day out, we're out there doing it. And sometimes people have a tendency, and it's good, that people aren't aware, but we're doing it all night long.
Right.
Too, and our night shifts are busy.
Yeah.
It's a different world sometimes after a lot of folks go to bed at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had the opportunity to talk to Kelsey McDaniel and Cody about Measure 110 reboot, and and I don't know that we talked about how that, are there some of those things that are helping? Did it help? Has it helped in what it is that you guys are trying to do?
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
It's early, in the, with this new law and what we're able to do with enforcement. And what I can tell you, and our district attorney, I suspect, spoke to this, but We created a DA diversion program in Union County. And so the individuals that we arrest for possession of a controlled substance now, which we couldn't do for small quantities like we can now before the passage of the most recent law, those individuals are referred, just like any other arrest or enforcement action that we take, to the district attorney's office. And those folks are then there's a determination if they would qualify for that diversion program. I haven't spoke to the DA specifically about this recently, but our own internal data suggests that the majority of those people that we have actually taken enforcement action on are not qualified for that.
They both said the same thing, Cody and Kelsey.
Yeah. And so, so I think that, from an enforcement perspective, it's definitely a move in the right direction without any doubt. And we have spoken about this, over the last several years.
Right.
Even when we're in the throes of, the rule of law as it was under ballot measure 110. But when we have contact with someone and a foundation or underlying contributing factor to whatever the problem or their behavior is drug addiction, it certainly is nice to be able to use that as a lever or consequence to try to stop that behavior.
Yeah. I think the big concern all is the distribution.
Yeah.
People can have various degrees of sympathy or understand or empathy for an addict, but that kind of goes out the window with the person who's distributing and making. And I understand that, the progress of addicts is to support their habit. Sometimes they're a part of the distribution chain and so on and so forth. But the big distributors, the drugs that are coming into the community, do we have tools? Are any of these tools helping to curb that? Or do you see that going forward being a possibility?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. This is a big question that we've been talking about in this nation, as long as I've been in law enforcement and before.
Right.
Because, if you want to talk about distribution and the actual problem that illicit drugs and drugs are having and the stranglehold they have, on our communities, and, the city of LeGrand, it's a community that looks like most communities in our nation. I mean, people oftentimes think about the larger metropolitan areas, but the truth is, throughout America, most communities are like-sized or smaller than LeGrand. And we're all feeling it everywhere, coast to coast.
Right.
So the distribution issue, we're talking about, worldwide. So, the federal government has a hand in that.
Right.
Our state governments have a hand in that. And of course, our local police agencies have a hand in that. My philosophy and the philosophy of the LeGrand Police Department has been for a very long time that, we know about, the impact that distribution has. It's basically a supply and demand issue.
Right.
Where people want it, there's going to be somebody fill that void. And so we do everything that we can within our resource limitations at, the municipal level to impact that. And we're talking about quality of life things.
Right.
And so more often than not, the enforcement that we take is on the user. But what I have found is the drug distribution network that I have seen, at least in our own community, has changed in the 30 years that I've been in law enforcement. We used to regularly have identifiable heavy level drug dealers. Yep. Now, those still exist, but we have nearly anybody that uses is also in the market of distributing. And a lot of times it's just about economics, because if they sell some, trade some, then they can supply their own drug addiction habit without having to, money out of their own pocket.
Right.
Right. And so, our enforcement is, if you have it in your possession and it's illegal, we're going to take enforcement action against you. And the idea with that is that we're trying to impact that at the local level, understanding that we have law enforcement counterparts at the state and the federal level who are doing their thing, and we're rooting for them and supporting them any way that we can. But if we can impact, that individual who's living in one of our homes in LeGrand, then that might have a significant impact positively on the children that are living in that home, maybe the people that live next door to that individual. So, we take those actions because what we're looking for is a change.
Right.
I like the comment about supply and demand, and somebody's going to do it regardless.
That's right.
Because if you think about it, most of this stuff's coming from down south, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And it's coming from a country that we don't have jurisdiction. So they're finding people in America, and if you get popped with 10 pounds of heroin or whatever, they're just going to go find somebody else.
That's right.
And then so on and so forth, all the way down the chain. And that's crazy how that works. You're like fighting a battle you can't win.
Yeah. Well, I think that I truly believe that we've learned some things in our nation about drugs and addiction and the impacts that it's having on our communities. But sometimes it's just painfully slow watching, us respond, if you will, as a culture. Because here's the real fix. We have to get people to understand and know that that's not a choice, and that that's not the life that they want to live.
Right.
And the consequences, irregardless of criminal law, yeah, that's there. And I truly believe, of course I do. I mean, that's my job, is that we need to have that consequence of law, so that if people get caught with that, that might be the button that was pushed that causes that person to turn their life around, get into treatment, make a change, maybe make themselves employable,
Right.
and contribute to our community somehow. But what we really need to do is foundationally and cause people, both in their families and individually, to take accountability for themselves and not seek that out. Because here's the thing, people are seeking drugs for a number of different reasons, but oftentimes it's an escape.
Right.
But however horrible somebody's life is, or whatever it is they're trying to escape, I can promise you, I've never used drugs.
Right.
But I have seen plenty who have, and I am a believer that it's not going to make your life better.
No.
Point to somebody that you think their life is better because they're addicted to a drug, and no, they don't exist. They're going to make their life even more difficult. They're going to be estranged from their family. They're going to have no place to live. Nobody wants to help them. There's they think that there's this camaraderie amongst, fellow users or fellow addicts. There's not. People, they don't care about you, and so it's a very lonely life, and it's a spiral. And so we got to change that culturally in the way that young people think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Taylor Scroggins, the executive director of Right Track Resources, which is kind of the rebranding of the warming shelter.
Right.
And they're expanding their programs. He was here a couple of days ago, and I mean, we've all been a part of the warming shelter journey since it began, and at times it has been rocky. How, from a police enforcement standpoint, are things better? I mean, this thing is set up for problems just because a lot of the times the people that are homeless or that need a place to stay, they've got other extenuating circumstances in life that make them not good citizens. And
Right.
so, it's a problem. Nobody wants it in their backyard. But at the same time, when it's, 15 degrees outside, people, they can't be sleeping out by the dumpster. I mean,
Right.
So I don't know. How is that going in the history of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So, here's the facts.
Okay.
We're not receiving, calls for service on any kind of a regular basis at the warming station. I view, as your police chief, I view the warming station much like a whole lot of other resources and social resources that we have in the community. It has a purpose. If we didn't have the element, that doesn't have a place to be, then it's kind of going back to a business way of thinking. It's like there wouldn't be a need for that, right? People wouldn't even be considering or thinking that we should be looking to have a warm place for people to shelter, so that they don't freeze to death. Right. So in terms of conflict within the community, we're not having regular calls for service in that neighborhood where the warming station is located. What I can tell you is that oftentimes the individuals that are using the services provided by the warming station are not the same people that our officers are having contact with, and oftentimes it's not the same people that community members might see at different places in our community that
Interesting.
clearly fit that demographic of homelessness.
Yeah.
You know, and our officers have a unique position where they have a very frontline access to talk to these individuals, and I do it myself. I'll go out with the officers. I just talked with a person outside before I came in here this morning who is a homeless individual. And here's what I can tell you. It's very regular that these individuals will ask. It's like, hey, do you know about the warming station? They do know. They don't want to use it. And it's not uncommon. I don't want to put all of these individuals in the same basket because not all of these people fit in the same basket.
Right.
But regularly, Brent, we're talking about people who are both drug addicted, have mental health issues, or one or the other. And they don't want structure. That's oftentimes the reason why they're in the situation they're in, because they've had an apartment, they've had somebody that they've been living with, but they don't want to follow rules. And so they've made a choice. And I'm not saying, it might sound rather callous what I'm saying, but I'm telling you factually, this is what we're dealing with. I'm certainly not speaking to every individual who meets the definition of homelessness in our community or our state or nationwide, but what I can tell you is we and a lot of other law enforcement agencies are dealing with a very unique group of people who they are choosing to do what they're doing, and they don't want help. They want to be left alone.
Well, and that is, that matches up with the information that Taylor gave us also, in the sense that the warming station is serving community folks. I mean, their presentation is that the majority of the people that are using their services are people in the community that need a fresh start. They're looking, they have declined, their housing situation has declined to the point where they're needing that kind of help.
Right.
And so it's that's pretty interesting for you to put it so bluntly, because it makes sense. Because so then, just to clarify that then, so then the people that we might look at and go like, why are you out in the weather? Those might not be the same people. That we're really talking about two different groups of people.
Well,
I mean,
I
they
think,
can blend, but
right.
they are,
I think it's just important for me to tell you that the individuals that might, anyone in our community, and I think, I can't speak for other communities, but I talk with a lot of police chiefs, we're all experiencing the same thing. But just because someone might fit the definition of someone who doesn't have a home or doesn't have a place to be, doesn't mean that they are automatically the people that we as law enforcement and my police officers are having contact with.
Right.
In fact, there is a lot of people that I can't speak to what their we don't intersect.
Right.
Law enforcement, and we do this, as part of our wellness, program, is we encourage our officers and do a lot of things in order to try to remind our officers over time, there are good people in our community.
Right.
There are good kids in our community. The majority of them are good people and good kids.
Right.
But I say that because oftentimes the people and the individuals who our police officers are having contact with are but a small percentage of the community members. And it's the same with persons. Yes, they would fall within the umbrella of definition of homelessness, but just because of that, our officers are dealing with those individuals who, let's just say that maybe it's a contributing factor, but they're also the individuals that they are not following rules.
Right.
They are not seeking drug treatment. They are not seeking any assistance. They have had opportunity, and they're not seeking assistance or following through with mental health treatment. I can not getting into names, but we have plenty of knowledge of people who have had apartments, places to live, and they just leave them. And it's sometimes even before they're evicted. They're not evicted or forced to leave.
Right.
They just don't want to be there.
Right.
And but then some of these individuals, they end up trespassing, committing other nuisance crimes, and we end up dealing with them, and we take that very serious, because it's like, look, and it's not that we're isolating or picking on anyone, but it's like, you know what, people in our community, whether they're, it's a residence or a business, it's like they have rights too.
Right.
And we work to protect all of that.
Right.
And so yes, we have contact with plenty of those people, and it's an effort, and we're working at it, feverishly. But it certainly does not describe the entire population that might, fall under the definition of being homeless.
Right. Well, and that, I mean, it's been 27 years, but I was in Seattle, in downtown Seattle, ministering there before I came here, and that was my experience. By working with people that were homeless and trying to help them and so on. Along the way, I figured out that if they're living on the street, nobody can tell them what to do. Right. I mean, what is telling them what to do is the consequences of their own life. But there are some people that they just, they would rather have the freedom of being on the street than what they would being accountable. Because if you live in an apartment, you gotta obey the rules of the apartment. You gotta, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The topic we spoke about earlier, drugs. That's why, this is a social issue that needs to be dealt with a more permanent, durable solution than just police officers moving people. We only have certain tools in our toolbox, in law enforcement. And some of these social issues that are the contributing factors to why do we have so many homeless people or people in the streets, with mental health, drug issues, not just in LeGrand, but anywhere, right? Why do we have that? That's not, law enforcement did not create that. Mm-hmm. We have some social issues that need to be addressed. But that's why I'm a firm believer that every tool that we have in our law enforcement toolbox, which is enforcement, if a person has drugs, which is now illegal in Oregon, we're going to arrest you or cite you, because if that is the mechanism to get that individual forced to make a change and be a contributing part to our community, living somewhere so they're not causing problems for other people, a job, that here's the truth is that's better for them and all of us collectively.
Yeah.
I'm looking to hire people. I would like a greater workforce.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, hey, let's go there. So how is, are you looking for people? How's your employment situation?
That's right. I got applications today, so when we're done, I'm going to help you guys both fill them out.
All right.
I'm not doing that. No, I could not do that job.
Don't sell yourself short. We have a great training program. We have a couple of police officer vacancies. We have, we tested for police officer yesterday. So I tell you what, we've become very good and very efficient at this because, we've been talking, and I knew when I was appointed to the position that I'm in now, Chief Harvey before me and I as his second in command, we had already experienced, going back 6 to 8 years. And so now, we're 10 to 12 years in to when we were super stable at the LeGrand Police Department with our, from top to bottom, our dispatch center, the ranks of our police officers. We had, our average tenure was 15 to 20 years. Mm-hmm. But hey, you know what? When I first started at the police department, the average tenure was less than 5 years. So it's cyclic. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in a perfect world, we would establish that so it's staggered.
Right.
But what we experienced was lots and lots of retirement. Mm-hmm. And I've talked in a number of different forums about this, but we're still in that rebuilding. Mm-hmm. And even when you're rebuilding and hiring people to replace those, persons that served our community for 25 plus years, it's just not realistic to expect when you hire those people that every one of those hires is going to stay for 25 years.
Right.
In fact, anybody that is part of this world in the hiring and HR and recruiting knows that the generation of workers, the people entering the workforce now, they perceive I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that the generation, of new workers into the workforce is different than the generation of workers, say, 25 or 30 years ago. Mm-hmm.
I'll say I think it's like they have ADHD or something. Like they can't stay stuck on one. I don't know how else to explain it, but I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. It's the generation that's coming into the workforce. They want to do other things. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
Hey, you can pick up any, text and take a look at it if you want. But the facts are that there was a time where, You know, people, there was a term that was used oftentimes as a company employee or a company man, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody hires you, there's that sense of obligation that they owe the employer. That's changed. I'm not suggesting, again, that right or wrong, you know, I mean, it is what it is, where we are today. But we have the fluidity of employment there are so many opportunities. People that want a job today, and that's why I say with young people, it's like, man, literally the world is your oyster, because you know, these young kids, these people in high school and even college, it's like whatever you want to do, the opportunity is there. And you know, just nearly everybody I know is hiring. I think that's going to continue for a while, but we're trying new things constantly. I mean, you've been involved in some of that, Brent, to generate you know, new interest or recruitment, and you know, and we're having good success in the terms of we're hiring good people. Now, what I can tell you, because I've been involved in hiring at different levels within the police department for a very, very long time, we're having to work much harder at it today than we did 20 plus years ago. But we're still, I mean, I am not interested in lowering the standards for selection. Here's the truth. I can't afford it, and neither can our community. I mean, the job today is harder than it was when I started. So we need good people. And, you know, we've talked many times about, you know, my expectations for foundational values at the police department, and that remains. As long as I'm here, we will have that. So we have to work really hard at finding the right people. But you know, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So yes.
So, interesting question, and I understand it took me a while to get my head around this, but the city of LeGrand, you know, the city of LeGrand has a city manager, and your boss is the city manager.
That's correct.
And the Parks Department, Stu, Kyle Carpenter. I mean, so there are different heads that run different parts of the city.
That's right.
Okay. And each of you, though, part of your job is to dream how to make that area best, you know. And so, and, you know, there are times that Tanya, bless her heart, will flippantly make a suggestion to me about something, you know, and I'll say, honey, you do know this is all I think about all the time is how to make this better. Now, she's a 50% partner. She can say what she wants, you know, but people from the outside don't understand that, you know, you eat, drink, breathe, sleep, how to make this better. So then all of that to preface this question. So if all of a sudden you had an extra $250,000 or $500,000, what's that thing out there that's on your wish list? Would it be another officer? Would it be some kind of a system, or I don't know? What's your thought on
let me
that?
clarify, because I am a budget guy.
Yeah,
right?
I know you are. Yeah.
So, but this is durable in terms of it's not one-time money, so I can have this budget year and next budget year.
Right. Yeah.
Then
yeah.
I would hire 2 police officers.
Yeah.
And that 2 police officers added to our team would equate to ongoing expense of around $250,000 a year. Obviously,
and
over
that's
time.
why I picked that number.
Yeah, over time. How much money were you going to give me?
$500,000.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a lot of leeway here. Yeah. So 2 police officers, that would give us a total of 4 police officers per shift, which means that at any given time, I would change. Right now, we have minimum staffing 24 hours a day of 2 police officers.
Okay, so per shift costs you $250,000 a year.
No. So right now we have our authorized staffing level.
Okay.
We have in patrol. We have 4 3-person shifts.
Okay.
What that means is 24 hours a day. There's 3 officers assigned, but with vacation and sick leave. Then what happens oftentimes is about half of the month, that means there's 2 police officers working at any given time.
Okay.
With 2 additional, but right now our authorized staffing allows us to have what we call a relief shift. So from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 a.m., we actually have additional officer every day of the week. And that's because that is that time frame where we have the majority of our calls for service.
Okay.
Or an increased number of calls for service.
Yes.
With 2 additional officers, we would then assign 1 additional officer, take the 2 relief officers and the 2 new officers and put them on one of the 4 shifts. So we would have 4 officers on every patrol shift, and we would change the minimum staffing level 24 hours a day to 3 officers.
Yeah.
And that is significant in terms of, because this year, I can tell you at the beginning of December, we are 11% higher in calls for service volume than we were last year.
Wow.
And 11 doesn't sound like a big number. It's a big number, because what I'm telling you, that equates to just under 1,200 calls for service just this year. 1,200
Increase.
That's so. When I say a call for service, that could be anything from a simple call
Right.
that takes an officer 10 minutes to a call that takes an officer 4 hours.
Right.
But that is a lot of work
Right.
to a group of police officers that already are busy.
Right.
So
So over 3 calls a day.
and that matters, because one of those calls for service might be dealing with an individual who's suffering with mental health issues. We end up at the hospital and we're there for hours, right? So that's significant, and that's a greater increase than what we have experienced or seen in a while. I mean, the obvious question is, well, what is that? What are those calls for service? It's across the board. There's not any one thing that can account for those additional calls for service.
That's crazy.
But I'm still talking about the money that you're going to bequeath to the Grand Police Department.
You're like a guy looking at bank, and I can tell you,
we would hire 2 additional police officers, and I also have a great interest in, some special service things, community service officers.
Yeah.
And that way we would have an officer in the downtown area on the regular.
Yeah.
Where they could be making contact with property owners and businesses, and just that presence.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes. But I'm fiscally conservative. But you brought up a great question earlier. You're kind of, as your lead into this, about how our city government works, and essentially we have a city manager who oversees what we call department directors. So we have, as you well know, fire department, police department, parks and recreation, public works, the library. We have all of these, wastewater. But yes, the city manager, and through the authority granted to him by our city council, hires directors. I'm a city department director, but the expectation, and reasonably so, is that I'm a subject matter expert in policing this community.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's my job description.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that I know everything about everything, because it's just not true. I don't have all the answers, but I certainly better have a bunch of them.
Right.
And I do. But I also rely really heavy and work hand in hand with each of these other department directors, because our community, it takes all of these things to make a community and our city work the way that our community members and the citizens in the community want it to. Because you're exactly right. It's like, we have a lot of people that love the library, or they love our parks. They like to go to one of our parks where their kids are playing ball, or whatever that might be. But it all has to work together, because look, if we had great parks and a place for people to recreate and want to spend their time, but public safety wasn't doing their job, and I'm talking about not just law enforcement, but also fire and EMS, because if somebody has a medical emergency, one of those kids gets hurt at the ball game, we want to have a professional and capable ambulance service that will show up and assist. Right. And so it's all, and we have a wonderful team of department directors that, I think that we work really well together. As a matter of fact, this morning, as soon as we're done here, we have a weekly department directors staff meeting at City Hall. And those are very productive, but a big part of it is just communication. And you guys know how that is. So around the table, literally, we have the department directors and the city manager from every city department. And we take turns, going around the table. And, when it comes to me, I will share with the other directors and the city manager what's going on at the police department. I'll talk about staffing. I'll talk about recruitment efforts. I'll talk about, any significant incidents that we might have experienced. But we also talk about things that might be coming up. We recently had a fantastic Christmas, the holiday parade, and so things like that, because that permit comes to me, but then we collaborate, and I'm talking with, Kyle with Public Works, and so we all work together. So it's a very cohesive team, but those are a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes week in and week out that, and it's perfectly fine that people take that for granted, because that's the idea. I mean,
Right.
we're trying to create an environment to allow people to live and recreate and work and have businesses and do what they do, and enjoy our community.
Yeah. In an ideal world, you don't want the citizens to worry about what you're doing, right?
It's exactly and it's not a matter, honestly, it's not a matter of not wanting, because I'm super transparent. It's like, what you want to know, I'll tell you. I mean, there's certain things legally that I can't, share, but the truth is, it's just like earlier on when I said, it's like, there's a lot of people that go through life and can be rather naive. And I don't say that, in a derogatory way, but rather naive about the fact that we have 911 dispatchers that are sitting there in front of the console 24 hours a day.
All day.
But you don't think about that unless you need them. And that's okay. I mean, and that's what we want to do, is just create an environment where people can feel safe and comfortable and live their life, and right now people are making plans, whether they're going to travel or host or what they're doing for, the upcoming holiday for Christmas. Those are the things that's like, do that, think about your family and think about, your business and, am I going to work on Christmas or not? Things like that. So, no, that's exactly right.
You can kind of liken being a cop to being a ref. Like if you're not being talked about,
sometimes more so than you know.
You don't want, you don't. If you're a ref, you don't want the fans to talk about you. You want to not exist.
That's exactly right.
And so, like, if people are talking about cops, it's usually bad.
Right.
I hate to say it.
No, it's
and
funny.
The same thing about refs. You don't talk about the refs when they make a great call. You say, "Damn it, you blew another call."
No, it's true. But see, that's the part where it's like, and that it's like, the truth is, my predecessors and other chiefs in other places that I've had great relationships with have told, look, in the job that I'm in, here's the truth is, some people may not see it, but I think it's super high stress, okay? Mm-hmm. There's very few times that I get away from thinking about work, and I'm worried about the community, I'm worried about the people that are at work. There's lots of worries, right? Mm-hmm. And I know, look, I've read all the books, I've had all the instruction and mentoring, that worrying doesn't help, right? But it's hard to turn off, right? But you only have so much in your vessel, if you will, you know. But it's like, I'm going to give you everything I got until I just don't have any anymore, and we'll turn it over to the next person. But before we run out of time, you said people don't want to talk about cops until, but I just want to say something, because in this case, I think this is a perfect example of why we should. And that is, next Tuesday we're doing Shop with a Cop. Yeah. So I'm sorry, but I just can't.
No, thank you.
These are positive things, and not to suggest that the things we do day in and day out, and the officers out there right now are not. It's positive because they're doing the things that we need to do to accomplish our mission. Yeah. However, we look forward to Shop with a Cop. We have kids that are looking forward to it. All the kids are selected. We're ready to go. Literally everybody's in launch mode. We have a whole team of volunteer officers and staff from the police department, sheriff's office, the state police, Walmart, Coca-Cola, Domino's. We got somebody came into the police department just this week. My assistant came in and said, "Hey, person came to the front counter. They didn't want to leave their name, wanted to be completely anonymous, and gave a $400 donation to the Shop with a Cop program."
Oh, that's
and it's
awesome.
like, you know what? That's meaningful, because you want to talk about programs that have a direct transmittal of, benefit to the end recipient, because it's like, look, we're not scraping any dollars out of that $400. That's all going to go to some kids.
Right.
And, we're going to link kids up with a police officer, let them shop for gifts for their family. They get to pick out something for themselves. We get to sit there and have lunch with them. If they don't have a Christmas tree in the house, we're going to get them a Christmas tree. They're going to get a ride home from a police officer. It is a wonderful experience.
Just people don't think about like even just the level of trust that establishes between that kid and the cop.
Right.
Like maybe 10 years down the line, that kid has something going on, right?
Right.
And they just remember, oh man, you were my shop with a cop.
That's
I trust you.
That's
and then maybe that changes their life completely, or the people around, and people don't think about that a lot. Like,
it's true. And we really work hard that it's not just that child, but it's also their
whole
family. Because it all starts, and there's a lot of legwork that goes into it, but it starts with meeting and getting waivers signed with family. And sometimes, there's that level of uncertainty and not, yes, exactly. There's some apprehension and potentially a lack of trust. And through the process, that family oftentimes, I think, gains a greater level of trust for the police. So if they need a police officer in a different situation, exactly what you say. It's like, hey, they've seen the officers, they've seen us, through a different lens. And and let's get real. It's like it's not. That's all enough, right? That's fantastic. But this is really healthy for the police officers involved as well. It's super
positive.
It's super good for them, right?
Yes.
To know that they're doing something, and not in a selfish way, but it's healthy for them mentally to know that they're doing something that is significantly positive, even if it's just the hour and a half or so that they spend with that child. It's really lasting and meaningful.
Yeah.
I think it's an awesome.
So that's next Tuesday.
That's
Talk
correct.
about that just a little bit and what that involves.
Yeah, so it all starts with all of the kids are picked up at the school. So all of the LeGrand School District schools, Island City included. It's grades 1 through 6. And the officers and all of the volunteers are already at Walmart waiting out front. The kids show up and they are assigned there because all of this has already been done in terms of what child is assigned with what officer. As they come off of the bus, their officer is there to greet them and introduce. We take a group photo, everybody involved. And then half of the group starts by going and doing their shopping while the other half sits and eats lunch. And then they swap. It's just a matter of logistics, space. And then while they're having lunch, we have volunteers that are wrapping the presents. So, we go through, we buy everything, and then we turn it all over to our volunteer wrappers. They wrap everything, put tags on everything. It's interesting because a lot of times the kids they're concerned about that. It's like, well, they don't want to leave the stuff, right? Because they're afraid maybe it's going to go away. It's like, no, it's not going away.
Yeah, you're getting it back. No
Yep,
worry.
that's right. And then the officer, they collect all the presents back up, and then the officer will give them a ride home. And we have a backpack that we give to each of the kids. Also, it's got a bunch of neat things. Gloves and some books, and
so they get a little gift too.
They get to pick out a gift of their
For
own
themselves.
to purchase.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
then
I
they
remember
also
that.
get some swag.
Yeah,
they get a backpack. They get. I think there's a fluffy blanket and books and, like I said, gloves. And historically, Walmart. What a wonderful program that they do. We have to apply for the grant every year in order to sustain the funding. I mean, we get a lot of community-based donations as well, but the Walmart, grant really is it's the bedrock of the funding. But on top of that, they'll roll in a whole bunch of coats, and so kids get to get a new coat out of the deal, and that's fantastic. And they're nice coats,
Right.
And the kids get taken home by the police officer, and then. Little kind of secret in advance, but I have a hard time keeping secrets. But we have a really good size grocery gift card that we give to the family as well. So
that's awesome.
it's a gift card that goes, and we directly give that to the parents or guardian, and they typically don't know that that's coming. And as you guys well know, right now it's like, who of us is not feeling
Right.
Yeah.
the pinch at the grocery store. You
Yeah,
know?
everybody.
And so that's helpful, and that's meaningful to us as well.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what an awesome. You're right. For the officers, what a great opportunity to see a different side of life.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know, have you came out before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
of course you have.
Yeah, and we'll be out there again.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you've noticed, but in all the years that I've been doing it, I take note of people that just happen to be in the store shopping
Yeah.
at that, and they see that, and I see smiles on their face even.
Yeah.
And it's just a genuinely, I mean, it's just a program that it's feel good.
Yeah.
And we have several people that have retired that were heavily involved in the program. Scott Franks, Lisa Reddington,
Yeah.
but Jason Hayes.
Yeah.
You guys know Jason, Lieutenant Hayes. He's been involved in this since we've been doing it, and we've been doing it a very long time. He loves it. I mean, he'll tell you, and he's put it in his performance evaluations. We do annual performance evaluations. Lieutenant Hayes has put in his performance evaluation that, hands down, this is his favorite thing he's ever done as a police officer and with the police department. And yeah, I get it. And he does a great job with it.
So I'll tell you a funny story. So in the early days of EOA Live TV, and we purposely steer away from drama or ambulance chasing, typical media stuff. I mean, that's just not our game. But at the same time, I mean, if we're, a year ago or so, there was if we hear the ambulances, several of them going by, and they all stop at the same intersection, then it's like, okay, I should wander over there and find out what's going on. So, but a few years ago, this is early on, I drove by Walmart, and it's like, holy smokes, something bad is going down.
All the cars.
Yeah, because, there were 10 cop cars, and there's probably more than that, And so I got out, and I'm like looking around and trying to figure out, and it was shop with the cop, and it was just a funny incident. So
yeah, it's not uncommon that whether it's social media or somewhere else, people say that they wish we could do it with more kids than what we're able to, and it's like, yeah, we do too.
Yeah,
but as you guys well know, it's a heavy lift, and the people that are volunteering, the state troopers and the deputies and the police officers and all of the other professional staff involved, that they have a busy schedule too, and so it'd be wonder if we could do this more with more kids, with every kid, right? It would be wonderful. It's just not logistically feasible. So we work really hard and in close communication with the counselors at our schools, to select these kids. And I get it. I wish we could do more. You know? And there certainly are plenty of deserving children that deserve an opportunity to do something like this, but we can only do what we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, thank
Awesome
you.
program.
Yep,
Yeah,
for sure.
thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing. And I say this every time, but I'm appreciative of you being a friend, and I'm appreciative of what it is that you and your guys do.
Yeah. Our pleasure.
Yeah, and it's like, I think of it, since I'm in the tech world, I think of it like being a sound guy. It's like, if you go to a concert and you don't even think about the sound, then everything's fine. Right. But if something happens or there's feedback or the sound quits, it's like everybody turn. And so that there's a lot of public safety, life, parks. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that if nobody notices, then it's functioning the way that it should.
Yeah, and most of us in law enforcement, we're not looking for the accolades. We don't want the spotlight. You know, I mean, we crave your support. Just support us so that we can accomplish the job.
Yep. Good.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Yep.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
You want to get us out of here?
Yep. On this day, December 12th, 1822, Mexico is officially recognized as an independent nation. 1915, on this day, the first all-metal aircraft, the Junkers J-1, is test flown in Germany. 1930, on this day, baseball rules, one of the most significant changes in rules ever. A ball bouncing into the stands is not a home run anymore. It's now a ground rule double. So when you look at like some of these numbers, Babe Ruth, his home run numbers, not a lot, but a significant amount of those were ground rule doubles, because back then if the ball bounced over the fence, it was considered a home run. 1936 on this day, Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek declares war on Japan. 1937 on this day, NBC and RCA send the first mobile TV vans into the streets of New York.
Wow.
1980 on this day, Apple makes its initial public offering to the U.S. stock market. 38 years later, it would become the first U.S. company valued at over $1 trillion. And then 2 years after that, the first U.S. company over $2 trillion. And then 3 years after that, the first U.S. company over $3 trillion. So it tripled in size in 5 years, essentially, which is crazy. 2022, on this day, Emma Tucker is appointed the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, and she's the first woman ever to lead that paper. On this day, the #1 song in 2004, Drop It Like It's Hot, Snoop Dogg and Pharrell. And then the quote comes from Karen Healy, and it's short and sweet. Talent is great, but persistence is totally underrated. One more time. Talent is great, but persistence is totally underrated.
All right.
That's it.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Chief Bill.
Yeah.
We always appreciate
Glad to be
you.
here.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Yeah. So
sir.
next week. Oh, so a couple things. One is this Sunday night at 6 o'clock, we'll be streaming the Messiah performance, which is at the LeGrand LHS High School Auditorium, Community Choir and Orchestra. Go take that in. Great performance. But if you don't make it, that will also be on right here on the EOA network. And then next week, Nick Vora will be with us on Tuesday. And then Mark Browning, who is the president from BMCC, I think that's his last name, will be with us here in the studio. So good guest next week. Be sure and take those in.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? You're not checking? Okay.
No, I
All right.
that would have taken a while. To
All right. Hey, see you guys soon.